but obviously there's always somebody involved, in this case the children. So
No,
now,
no, what one was saying there was they themselves, the parents, should exhibit those qualities of fatherhood or motherhood. Then, in return, the children will show deep admiration and respect for such qualities. It means the parents first must give something which will now elicit, like a reciprocal action, as you find in creation, reciprocity. You do not expect a child to respect a parent who shows bad example, who goes drinking, comes home drunk, disregards the household, does not show any respect to fatherhood, and causes confusion. What sort of respect, what sort of admiration do you expect the child to show in return? In reciprocity, the child, who is not yet matured, all right, has not been given the right example, and therefore cannot show any admiration for a parent who comes disturbing the smooth household or causing so much confusion, beating up the children, beating up the wife, it hasn't shown those innate abilities which are required of fatherhood or motherhood. And in return, cannot then say the children should show respect. It is equivalent to what Brother Riyna mentioned earlier.
thank you, Brother Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the spiritual discussion program. The topic for tonight is respect and dignity. You can join us with any questions or comments on this number, which is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. And we've got a question now from a listener called Maria, and I think she's referring to the first question that we started with, or maybe the second one, which was, I think, referring about criminals demanding respect. So if I read it out to everybody, which is, do you want to read it, Brother Ryan? Go on.
Okay, I just read it out, the question. Maria is asking, but I really wonder why it is so important to people to feel validated by others. It shows a weak self-esteem.
So, Brother Rana, would you like to take that one?
Yes, why not? Of course, a person who is self-assured and goes his way and knows his aim is not dependent on the admiration of the others. In fact, he would do the things he knows are right, even if he would get no acclaim from the masses, from the whole world. In other words, he just knows, I'm going the right way nonetheless, and I think that's the right attitude. You do not demand respect, even if you have the qualities. If other people do not respect you for them, or do not take notice of your achievements, apparently, then you still go your way, because you know, I'm doing the right thing. It has to be done, because the ultimate aim is that we fulfill a higher aim, and we have to go towards that aim. And it does not really matter if we've got the applause of the world. So the other thing is, a really good person, exceptional person, even if it is hated and attacked, the people are against those qualities because, well, they are on the side of destruction, of negation. They still look at the person with some admiration, and just the attack shows that they have some deep admiration for that person, unconscious admiration. It is their spirit, otherwise they would not attack. And often you find that constellation, that people who really have something to offer are quite unjustly attacked for the things they propone and want to achieve. And this attack itself shows that there's a quite deep down, there's a deep respecting of that other person. But again, that person who does something, you do not something because of others. In the last analysis, you do not do it. You do it because it's the right thing to do. I pass it back to you, Saad.
Thank you.
Or perhaps Brother Greg has something to say.
I agree with what you have said, and it's in line with the discussions we've been having.
Must obey. Anything else will be deemed total disrespect to the parents. How do you respond to that, Brother Gregory?
Very simply, only that which is of value should be respected. Would the Nigerian culture or part of those people who hold such views, will they expect a father or a mother to come into the home and show so much disrespect, destroys the home, sells everything off, and yet the children to still show respect? Such one-sidedness is not what is demanded by the commandment, which you had read out. Such one-sidedness will come to a halt or will crash in due course. It is true that before the age of maturity, children are supposed to be protected, are supposed to be cared for. And in that particular scenario, in return for what the parents or those who stand in as parents are doing, in return, these children show respect. They have something to admire. They have seen some valuable qualities within the parents, and therefore, in return, they show respect. If there are no valuable qualities or abilities or achievement from the parents, how can you show respect where respect is not due? Or because they are your parents? It's impossible. That would be violating the law. If a parent comes home and doesn't allow you to breathe, comes home drunk, does not make any provision for a healthy home, but takes whatever they have at home and takes it outside to do some drinking, how can you show any respect?
So what can be done? Sorry to cut in. Brother Rana wants to say something. Go on. Yeah.
I think she was asking the question the other way around. The parents do not respect the children. So should parents respect children? That's a difficult question. Brother Greg, would you like to say something?
Maybe I didn't get. Of course, parents should show examples.
Okay, so when your child comes into the house and really wants to tell you something, and you're a parent, you of course respect the child and you listen to it with attention and really try to understand what it is trying to tell you, and take it seriously as a child. I think that's self-understood, yes?
Yes.
But I think, what about when you have an adult conversation and the child just barges in? That would be the wrong moment to turn the attention to the child, because adult people talk about different things than children generally talk about. So that's a different case. So I'll put the question to you again, Brother Greg.
Well, as you will find very carefully, children, as long as they're underage, are in need of protection. Their perceptions are very simple. There's no strive to go into the complexities of adult talk. By the way they do things, it is simplicity and admiration. So they will not come in to discuss adult talk where adults are discussing, unless, however, the child has been spoiled and has been compelled to listen to this adult discussion, to which it has no understanding. Children will always want to go with children. It is the adults who, along the line, one way or the other, compel them into something which they, the children, will want to move away from. So the adults need to watch themselves first.
Yes, I think that's a very important point. We must, I guess, the adults must respect the children as children and know they are children and take them seriously and treat them as children. But if the child wants for some reason to be an adult and thinks it can talk about some things which really concern, which are on adult level, the parents, then I think one must show the child, look, this is another world, you do not know about those things, you cannot know about those things, so stay, please do not interrupt or do not try to say something where you actually cannot understand what the whole what the whole issue is about.
If I may come in again.
Yes, please.
It's a very serious discussion, in the sense that in schools nowadays, you have 2-year-old, 3-year-olds are brought into discussions which they are not yet matured for. For instance, the so-called sex education at a very tender age, when these children are supposed to be running about, understanding nature the way it is, the elders, thinking that they know so much, want to introduce sex education and start telling them of the various parts of their body, what it's used for, and things of that nature. And even parents go to the extent of undressing themselves, all right, in the presence of their young children, and already stimulating sexual instincts in these young children. This is disrespect shown. This sort of disrespect is exhibited by parents, and they are not conscious that this sort of thing is sort of dragging these children down, and that the repercussions will come much later, because they're exposing these children to things which they are not yet matured for. But they will tell you, oh, it doesn't matter. So most of the time, the disrespect comes from the adults through their activities. For they haven't observed that children need protection from all these things until they get to that age where they are matured enough and can show understanding to these things.
Yes, definitely one can almost say that such parents do not understand what the term child or the concept child means. That you, in order to respect a child as such, you really must understand what a child is. And a child is just no adult. And to treat it as an adult, or the example you gave, the shocking example, but in fact, I know it is going on, does of course a lot of harm to the child, and unfortunately, so I think one should first, as a parent, one of the first things is to learn about what is parenthood, what is motherhood and fatherhood, and what is a child.
Thank you, Brother Ryan. I'm not 100% sure we addressed the actual question what the Lady Maria was asking, so I'm just going to say it again because I think it was more about the culture. So, but I mean, it can be everywhere, this problem, but I will just say. So I'll just read it again. And so it said, I'm from Nigeria. Unfortunately, parts of the culture does not promote respect to children. So it's parents to children. Children are not supposed to give their opinion on what the parent says. They must obey anything, else they will be deemed total respect to the parents. So it's like the children are, the parents say something, and then the children respond with probably a differing opinion, and then just even almost maybe responding alone is maybe considered by the parents to be a disrespect to the parents, and this could be a cultural thing. It's like they're interrupting the parents, and so it's not necessarily about there's a topic that the parents can only talk about and then the children shouldn't be involved in that topic. I don't know if that's what's being said here. It's more that the children want to say something and they're not being allowed to speak at all. Almost it's like they're not allowed to have a say. And
again, sorry, you can find that is, from what you have described, that is very wrong. Imagine a child who feels unwell, and that child cannot even say something. How will the parents know that the child is unwell? Because the culture says don't say anything? Like I said, such one-sided views is not helpful. And like you find those days where parents just say whatever they like without caring, not knowing that the children are around, and therefore they have to guide against how they express their opinion. Children learn from these things. So, sorry, whenever you have such a scenario, the parents should look within themselves. They must have given room for such behavior. It may not be directly, most of the time indirectly. For children will never want to stay where adults are unless they need protection. They will want to play with children. When they need to express themselves, they should be allowed to express themselves. It's only when you listen to them, you may find out that which is wrong or not wrong.
Thank you, Brother Gregory, for that. Okay, I'm going to move to the second part of our topic, which is dignity now. Brother Ryan, what is dignity? How is it? What do we mean by dignity? And in regards, I think let's talk about that.
Okay, I think this is a term even more difficult to talk nowadays about such a thing. Dignity, of course, one can give some quick definitions, but it is something which is almost. When I heard the topic a week ago, I almost thought, well, do we have any dignified behavior? And of course, does it still exist? Do we have any dignified dressing? And what it is and I must almost say a conception of dignified behavior that has almost completely disappeared, and in fact it is being attacked currently. So you want to be undignified, you want to sit in a way which is a not dignified way, and or you want to talk in a way which is not dignified. So the definition I found, or what I would start with, and is dignified is what befits a human being.
Dignity.
Dignified behavior is a behavior which befits a human being, which one really can say it is human and not below the human level. And actually then I've found a wonderful sentence I discussed it with another person, and she said one psychologist always, when he starts a session, he starts with the power of silence and talks about taking a pause and try to push back the hecticness of life, of modern life, and have this break, this pause, this stillness, this moment of stillness. And what he then says is, take your seat with dignity and graciousness. A wonderful sentence to start a session to the participants. So take your seat with dignity and graciousness. And already there you see that they sit down in a certain way, in an upright position, that they don't just lounge or almost lie on top of it. It's a very specific picture which this sentence conjures up in you. And there you can kind of get a slight impression what dignified behavior is. And I think I will leave it with that, but for the start I give that thing. If we are truly human, our behavior is dignified if we behave in a truly human way, which is worthy of a human. And this is not like an animal. And of course, dignified behavior permeates then all areas of life, so we can eat in a dignified way and we can speak in a dignified way. And even I found one sentence in the Grail message which is very good in this way, where it even says we must think in a dignified way. And the quote from the Grail message is, but dignity, peace, light and joy can in turn only arise from a dignified way of thinking, never otherwise. So there is even a dignified way of thinking and an undignified way of thinking.
Now, okay, Brother Riyna, you think of let's say in UK we have the Queen here, and obviously whenever you see her, she's like the most well-dressed, the most well-spoken, the best manners, and she treats, when we look at in UK we have the Queen, how she behaves, very well dressed, and with how she speaks, really dignified. It's just, let me say, that's a real example of dignity if you were to use that example. And then I just wanted to ask a little bit to understand dignity a bit deeper. Is it connected with, let's say, your class, or that, because you can say there are different levels of dignity, because obviously people who are working in the, let's say, with their hands, and I don't want to call it lower class necessarily, but anybody who works in that type of field where they're having to deal with the land or whatever, is their dignity of a lower level than somebody who is like a leader somehow, or maybe I'm just completely mistaken about that? How would you say that about that?
I think it is. There's a German proverb which says, work is dignity. In other words, it says, if you work, you cannot become undignified. A non-working person which does not contribute in any way to the good or to the well-being of humanity, such a person just idling its way, and he might be from the aristocratic class, this is not a dignified way to live. A dignified way is really to give something to humanity which helps humanity, or humanity, I mean that can be any other person, which helps another person on its way upwards. Now, of course, we have dignitaries in church. The bishop puts on a big robe and puts on a very high hat, and that does not make a person dignified. If you talk with a sonorous voice, puffed up with importance, let your beard grow, and think you are the most important mullah, and every word uttering your escaping from your mouth is the wisdom, is the ultimate wisdom. That is not the thing. Dignity is a result of your inner qualities, of your inner being. And if you have something to give and you are inwardly noble, that inwardly noble thing shows itself outwardly in a dignified behavior. So in even a person in very poor clothes can walk like a king and show a very dignified behavior. So we have an outward dignity, an external dignity, which is not dignity, it's just a show of pretense. It must, if you want to exhibit dignified behavior, you must be noble inside, and you must have qualities inside which show themselves as outward behavior. So a person of the upper class can be dignified, very dignified, and it's a wonderful thing if it is, but it can also show non-dignified behavior, and we have examples enough of that. And a person in the church holding wrong views and even off-putting views will not be dignified in whatever he does, if he walks to the altar or in whatever he engages. But dignity definitely is something any human being can achieve, the poorest as well as the richest, and working hands which have been which show traces of the work they have done. That is for me that is a sign of dignity. On the underground, I saw opposite myself a girl with enormously long nails, manicured in the most incredible way with flags and little pictures on it. And the idea comes, what useless hands. They cannot wash, they've never been washing, or they are pretty useless to do any kind of manual task. And it just looked cheap. Well, dignity is just the opposite of cheapness, and a dignified behavior is a valuable, noble behavior, and it is not just a cheap thing. I pass it back to you, Sard.
Thank you very much, Brother Riyna. That really illustrates very clearly what is dignity, not the outer sort of dress or behavior, but the inner behavior, the real human being, the spiritual being, qualities being manifested. So thank you.
May I add a bit more
yes,
brother?
Please.
You will find that many times, on most occasions, dignity is expressed in the way in which one responds to challenges. When one is forced to respond to challenges, how the person articulates himself or herself in speech or whatever shows the inner composure on how things should proceed. That immediately brings out the dignity. If you have a scenario where one responds to challenges in such a rough manner, you will not say that particular person is dignified. On the other hand, when you have a calm and composed and also reflective way when one responds to challenges, then you classify that state as a dignified state when challenges abound to one.
Yes, I definitely agree. That's a wonderful side you have just opened up. And to show a dignified behavior, you need mastership in some areas so that you can respond to a challenging situation in a calm and cool and a superior way, and can deal with that situation in an exemplary way. And of course, So dignity really presupposes a mastership or in some area, and then you can stay calm. And there's a proverb, I think, in German, I just say it. It says something like, little pots blow their top very easily, translated.
Okay.
So if you blow your top with any kind of stress situation, that's not a dignified behavior. That seems simply you do not have the strength and the mastership to cope even with the easiest situation. And so it's really important to try to become a bigger pot which doesn't blow its head so easily. So I pass it back to Sard.
Thank you, Brother Riyna. Dear listeners, you're listening to the Spiritual Discussion Program on Tuesday night. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And the topic for discussion tonight is respect and dignity. If you do want to find out more about the Grail message or get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, which is GRAIL, message, MESSAGE.com. And if you want to join us with any questions or comments on this topic for tonight, which is respect and dignity, the number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 313 66. And if you're outside of UK, it's 0044 79 444 313 66. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And you can listen to us on blessradio.org, www.blessradio.org. Also, you can go to tunein.com and then search for Bless FM. On that, tunein.com, and then search for Bless FM. Also, you can go to YouTube, youtube.com, and then search for Bless Radio 1, number 1, Bless Radio 1, and then live stream. And we are broadcasting live on YouTube. After the show finishes at 10 minutes after, you can listen to the recording of this show or any other show. You just need to type again on YouTube, Bless Radio 1, and then you type Bro Sard, that's me, BROSAAD, and the Grail message, Bro Sard and the Grail message, and the topic for tonight, the topic is respect and dignity, and you can listen to tonight's show or any other show. So thank you for that. I'm going to go back to Brother Gregory now. In a way, we've been dealing with this already, because we dealt with respect on its own, and now we've talked about dignity by itself. So what's the interplay between dignity and respect, Brother Gregory? How is there some connection that we can see from that? Can you talk about that?
One just mentioned and said that the way one cares to respond to challenges, expresses one's dignity. And when one said that word expression, we had also talked of respect as some form of expression when there is something of value to be considered. So you find that they are connected. Dignity and respect, they go hand in hand. It's as if one is a result of the other.
Thank you for that. So, okay, let's move on a particular aspect about respect. Let's say the use of the name God. And we hear that a lot. People sort of do it willy-nilly, or I don't want to sort of say blasphemous thing or something, but just to use it as an example, just to give the picture to people in case they don't know what I'm trying to say here. And they say, oh my God, things like this. Not that I mean this when I say it right now. I just want to give that example. It's said hundreds of times in a day. And what would you say about that, Brother Gregory? Because people say that mostly without thinking, and and in some way they're saying it without thinking, but then sometimes there is some sort of respect behind it, but it's like it seems superficial somehow. So could you say something about that, Brother Gregory?
Precisely, you have said it all, that it is superficial. It is said, say what you mean and mean what you say. But for that which is superficial, it has no strong connotation anymore. It's become an everyday word. The power which is attached to such an expression is lost. And therefore, in the time of need, when the human spirit is in dire need, such words become meaningless because they are unable to attract that power which that expression is supposed to connote and bring that power into prominence and help them out of their dire needs. Because they have made this particular word, which should be above all words, they have made it something so trivial that it has lost its original meaning.
Thank you, Brother Gregory. I just seen a question, or you could say a comment from a listener, and this is referring to what Brother Ryan was saying about, Brother Ryan, you were talking about a lady on the tube with her nails. So Maria has sent a I will say it's a comment, so I'll just read it out actually. So she's saying, the illustration of nails kind of implies that dignity also has to do with the way you look. The speaker said it looked cheap. I believe what you are saying, if you are a dignified person, it will show on the outside. However, how do you train yourself to be dignified, and what is the 3 yardstick to measure a dignified behavior? So I'll put that to you, Brother Riyna. So how would you say, how should somebody become dignified? Shall I read it to you again?
No.
Okay. You can read it aloud. So Brother Ryan is just reading the point.
I believe what you are saying, if you are a dignified person, it will show on the outside. Yes, definitely. However, how do you train yourself to be dignified, and what is the yardstick to measure dignified behavior? Okay, I think, of course, nobility and like a superiority through one's skills shows itself in a certain behavior, like a surgeon who knows is so skilled he can almost operate with the most precision and almost blindly, and it shows itself in the way he does his job. And I know there's an example where a surgeon was so engrossed in the operation that he didn't realize how in fact part of the ceiling was crumbling, because he was in a kind of flow, and this flow of course could be observed, and you knew there is a master at work. And like this, also nobility shows itself outwardly. Now the yardstick, it's definitely not an external yardstick. You know exactly from the inside, without thinking, without any analytical reflection, you just know you are full of admiration, or you just see this is really dignified behavior, and it just looks good. That's the simple thing. You do not have to think. You do not have to apply a yardstick and categories and say, and hook that off, and hook that off, and hook that off. It is much too alive. It shows itself in everything, and you are impressed. Your spirit is impressed, and pleasantly impressed. And that is, it's agreeable. It is worthy of a human being, that dignity. And it doesn't offend. An undignified behavior, in a way, offends. and you know what is offending. No one has to teach you that. Just by being away, there's innate in every human being, there's a sense what is dignified and not dignified. There's a sense of what is beautiful and what is not beautiful. And even if if all the world tries to attack at the moment that dignified behavior and the fashion deliberately tries to find to be undignified in a way, let us say, like the trousers of men a short time ago, they hang down at the knees, and parts of the body of a male body were revealed, which was, well, one can be quite honest. I think every human being with some kind of aesthetic sense who still is alive to what is beautiful or not, and not, will be off-put by that and probably turns his eyes away not to have to face that. So I think it's not an external learning. You cannot learn it in an academy. You have it inside you, and the real problem is to make that alive, to bring those capacities again to life within us. We have all what we need to recognize dignified behavior. So the thing is to awake inwardly, and I think the Grail message really shows that how important it is to become alive again inwardly, to wake up, and then we recognize dignified behavior and also dignified apparel very easily and quickly.
Okay, so
again, thanks for that particular comment, and it's quite revealing. One also want to enhance what you just mentioned. The inner qualities. These inner qualities start from self-control. It's not for nothing when it is mentioned, know thyself. The challenges that you face, how do you respond to these challenges? Know thyself also means to know those innate qualities which you have and cultivate them. And also understand that each person has similar challenges in knowing themselves. And you show respect to yourself in the way you care to express yourself to others, knowing fully well that you have challenges and others also have challenges. That is where respect and dignity comes in. Because the more you improve your innate qualities, the more you have personal self-control. For within the inner man, as we now know, that the inner man or the inner woman or the personality is of spirit. This spirit has qualities which has been implanted into it. It is the purpose for which this human spirit has come into existence. And it's only in the development of these qualities from their unconscious state to a conscious state or to a self-conscious state, that is where we have dignity. Therefore, each human spirit ought to strive to know itself. That will be the origin of all dignity. And also knowing that others also have challenges within their sphere in doing something similar. And therefore, one should never forget that one is on a journey. And in this journey, you started as an unconscious spirit gem, in which you have to return as a conscious spirit gem or a self-conscious spirit gem. How one has to move has been well stated clearly and logically in the work, in the light of truth, the Grail message. It is true that we make references to it, but we also stress, never ever take our word for it. Go and examine for yourself.
Thank you, Brother Gregory. From what you've been saying, everybody's... okay, let me give a bit of broader thing first. So let's say in the world today, there's some people who are very free, to do, being individual, doing whatever they want, doesn't matter what anybody thinks. Then there's people who, in quotes, I'm going to use this word, which I don't really like to call it this way, but who are a bit like robotic. They follow their belief, the religion, setting certain certain codes, or what they're supposed to, certain rules, let's say, of how they should dress, how should they behave. It's which is nice, because they will definitely look decent, and they will behave in a good manner, but it's still a bit robotic, because it's like somebody's telling them, or they're having to learn something, and it could be like everybody's following the same way, and they look the same in a way almost, rather than being individual anymore. So it's like we got two extremes. One is completely free, individual, doing whatever they want, don't care about any morality or anything. The other one, they care about morality based on their religious code, but it's not that. It's almost like, and then if they disobey that code, it's like, that's not what is acceptable or something. So, but how you have been speaking, Brother Gregory, and even Brother Riyna, it's like each person has to have their own sense of beauty and their own sensing. So what I'm going to ask you, Brother Gregory, about that is, what's the starting point? Because the world is all messed up everywhere. Can we just rely on ourselves without any guidance of what's out there as an example for us? Is there any sort of help we can have? Especially when we talked about earlier, Brother Gregory, remember, honor father and mother, and if your father, mother, or whoever's playing that role is not a good example, then what does that child going to become? He's not going to see the good example, and maybe he's not capable of finding himself. So is there any sort of principles, Brother Gregory, you can advise that how somebody can find their dignity and respect? How can they do that?
Well, thanks for that particular question. From the beginning, even from birth, if we have to start from birth, and not what lies behind birth, you'll find that one relies on one's parents, following the guidances. So at that stage, parents are supposed to be like guides to enable you to mature while you are being protected as you grow up. But it doesn't stop there. You have friends even as a child, and as you grow up, you interact with others. And in your interaction, there are certain responses which you take in order to evaluate. And therefore, the maturity goes on. It comes to a time when you wish to now move away from father and mother, just like an apple will fall away from its tree in order to proceed on its own. In that case, you have continuous gathering of impressions and then expressing yourself. And then along the line, one comes to understand, or one comes to recognize that there are rational impressions, or the ones which come from one's intellect. And then there are some others which seem to come from deep within one. And these deep impressions either come, in some instances, through terrible suffering or in deep joys. All this a person is supposed to learn from. And then along the line, you keep examining whatever comes across your path, as long as one harbors the good volition for that which, to some extent, you have now recognized to be noble, within the perfection of things, that will draw you close to those who have similar tendencies. And if one is fortunate, you will then come across those who will have similar thoughts like yourself and wish to examine further. That is how you'll find teachings here and teachings there, which you are able to take in and also to examine. Some of the examination may be done through schools, because these have been written down. Some may be done through churches or mosques or through religions, which may harbor facts here and there. But above all, the personality knows he or she is a part of nature. Being a part of nature, or the body that it uses is a part of nature, if it seeks further, the tendency is to ask, what rules guide nature? With such good volition, other avenues will then open up. That is how the human spirit matures. And before long, it may come across works, like we have been referring to in the light of truth, which further explains everything in a logical fashion. But this logical fashion must be examined with one's intuition, such that is able to say, yes, this is true, or this is not true, which is now a matter of morality. So, as one grows up, there are impressions from outside, which the personality takes in to examine quietly.
Thank you so much about this answer, Brother Gregory. It shows this is really a journey, an individual journey, even if you, and it's like there are different stages. So thank you for giving that picture. Did you want to say anything, Brother Riyna, to that?
No, not
Okay.
not really to that particular thing. I just wonder about one thing. I'm not quite. Perhaps I'm of a different opinion. That concerned the part with respect towards God, or respect towards the word God. I have the impression, thinking about it now, that here we apply the word respect wrong. You do not respect God. You submit to the will of God. There is no other thing. Otherwise you do not understand God. If you have only the smallest inkling of God, you know that there's nothing to respect. To respect something, you have to have someone equal, almost someone on your level. You can respect another person, his free will or his decisions, but with God there's only, in the last analysis, adoration and submission. Submission in a very positive sense to his will, to his laws, and swing in his laws, because you cannot respect and accommodate him. There's a complete surrender to God, and to say you respect God, that it is out of proportion. That word is applied wrongly, in my opinion. I hope
I think you are very correct. Of all words had been brought down and had been made so earthly or had been brought to the dust. So it doesn't conjure anything before the eyes of their spirit. So I agree with you that the picture you painted is absolute. However, the problem lies in the concept which those who use it in such a fashion, is in the concept they have held up till now. Unless clarity is granted to them through revelation, or they themselves have to go through harrowing experiences, say in deepest sorrow, or sometimes in bliss, they may not have or come closer to the concept of that particular word which they use as everyday plaything.
Thank you, Brother Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the spiritual discussion. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdul Shin. And if you want to get more information about the Grail message or get a copy, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And we'd love you to join us for our discussion, which is about respect and dignity. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 31366. Going to talk further about respect, and you know, the politicians
of the one who personally attacks. And on the other hand, it also happens with an ideologically blinkered person. Ideology now encompasses a dogmatic religion. The persons cannot objectively argue anymore, so they have to turn to other means of defending their belief, and that might be violent action or it might be personal attacks, but they feel they cannot answer objectively to something. And if you aren't, and the Grail message says, if you are in the Grail message says, or Aftershin says, if you objectively have absorbed the truth cannot be defied, cannot be argumented against. So the other side, if it feels the truth, has always to work with other means, and one of those means is personal attack. I mean, it does not shy away from murder. Murder is of course the most severest of personal attacks, but many people try just to blow up their opponents because they cannot argument in a logical way. And if you have the truth on your side, it cannot be counterproofed because it is the truth, and you can stay logical. The wonderful thing about the Grail message, it also says the truth is logical. It has a simplicity, a beauty, and this beauty can only be there if there's also complete logicality in everything. You can derive everything, you can find a conclusion to everything, and that gives you the necessary strength in discussions to really defend that which is good. So I pass it back to you, Brother Sard.
Thank you very much, Brother Riyna. I've got a question now for Brother Gregory. Brother Gregory, the Grail message says that you are free to wander in creation without harming others. Does that mean that if we make a comment about someone or something, and that person gets offended, and we are harming that person, that's like somebody's being harmed. Because if you think like this, then this might become a bit ridiculous, because some people just get offended. Somebody will always get offended. That's what I'm going to say. Let's say you make people in the press, let's say, or some big I don't know, star says something about whatever people, or and something, and then some people will laugh, others will get offended, so which means you some people are not harmed, but others are being harmed, and the person may have no intention to harm. The person who's making the statement has no intention to harm. He's just making his opinion known. And so what do we mean then? Are we allowed to speak our mind? Because that's like, that's what we have today, political correctness. You can't say anything which can offend somebody, so Brother Gregory, what do you say about that? Because what the Grail message says, you're allowed to walk freely in creation without harming others. So in a way, what is it? Can you say anything that somebody might feel harmed?
That statement must be interpreted correctly.
Yes.
In the sense it's referring to, like the Grail message is, spiritual activities. It is through spiritual activities that you spin threads, which threads bind you to one place or to another, or to one human being or to another, or to different events. So that statement is only meant spiritually. There are many things which are said which do not carry that power, which is binding. And there are other things which may carry so much. It doesn't mean one should not express one's intentions anymore, but they should be expressed in such a way that they swing unconditionally within the will of the Lord of creation, or within the laws of creation, or what one refers to as the laws of nature. As long as what is done swings unconditionally with the laws of nature, then the threats will be such that they do not bind you as to bring you terrible returns on the long run. On the contrary, if these activities are in accordance with the laws of nature and are upbuilding, these threats will sort of lift you up. And at the same time, one is swinging in such a way that one does not oppress another. Only what has been done deliberately in order to bring another person down is evil. There are many things which are said, but what lies behind it is not evil. One must weigh with the spirit, not only with the intellect. For there are some things which, when seen from the outside, look evil, but deep within, they venerate the Almighty. And there are other things which from the outside look so good, but are only based on selfish inclinations. So, if one may judge, one must refer again to one's intuition.
So, now I'm going to give something a little bit different here. Let's say you're talking to your friend or someone close to you, and let's say they're overweight, and but the person doesn't like who's overweight, doesn't like, if you said, look, you need to do something about this, otherwise your health will you'll suffer a lot in your future health. So now somebody could say, that person could say to them, the overweight person, oh, you're fat, that's just like and that could be taken as offense by the overweight person. But actually the intention was to just to tell them that, look, it could be dramatic, I guess, this way of saying it, that look, you need to do something about your weight. So you know, so my question there is, you know, do you have to, you know, let's say everybody's advised to speak the truth in any situation. So, and here I'm talking somebody, let's say close to you. You know, it's like you wouldn't like to be joking. You know, avoid telling them things that you know you care about them. So, Brother Gregory, so what would be the like in way that you can make your point without offending? Like that's what I would like to say on that. So that you can, that the person
But
gets.
you know, it's all this depends on the threshold on whoever you are discussing with. But it has been made very clear. Let your yes be yes, and your no be no. Whatever lies in between comes of evil. So let your speech reflect your inner intentions, and let it be clear. One cannot go beyond that. But it's not something, you don't have to go to the university to learn how to speak to people. It's a question of, if the tables were turned, how would you like to be spoken to? And the words or the expression, love thy neighbor as thyself, comes in. So it's not that one should go on calculating what one should say and what one should not say. But in expressing yourself to your neighbor, whether it's your wife or an enemy or whatever, is done in such a way as to convey your intentions, which, if well articulated, one will find that is genuine. So you have to leave it there.
Thank you for that. Brother Riyna, I want to go in another angle on that now. You know, people make jokes. Now, I've been listening recently, the comedians say, you know, you can joke about anything, you know, anything at all. And if somebody's offended, they don't really care about that, because they, you know, it's not that obviously a comedian is not supposed to be making a joke to harm anybody. He's just trying to, you know, just that's the way he says it, because that's how, that's a way to illustrate something. So what they say is basically you can make a joke about everything, anything and anything, and maybe I will add something to that. Especially this becomes a bit more touchy when it's about religion, you know, or even a particular race. You know, people get a bit offended, quite intensely, you know, more than, let's say, some other sort of joke that might be, you know, like, which we know, let's say somebody just falls over and then people just laugh, which is like, let's say, a light one. But when it's regarding, let's say, religion, or when it's regarding particular races, the character of these people, and so on, and some people can take it quite offensive. What would you say about that, Brother Riyna? Is that right to make jokes like this, or it should be, what do you think?
Well, for start, I'm not one who believes that you can talk about anything, or that you can discuss anything, or that you can make jokes about anything. If you try to make jokes about anything, then most probably it is the case that you have no understanding of what you're making jokes about, because then you would know that some things are really out of the realms of jokes. Good humor is always made in a loving disposition, means trying to help something, and it's very difficult. It is completely different from making jokes, especially malicious jokes, and about something. And it is always there, when do things look funny or make you laugh as an adult? That is those jokes when when someone learns something, that a child learns something and says a funny word, and then everyone laughs because the child has just something incredibly funny. But it is this innocence, it is this learning process where the child makes some mistakes, and those mistakes make you laugh, but it's not a malicious laugh, it's a kind of loving laugh. You love the child for it, and you know after some time it will know, one day it will realize that it was a really funny thing it said, and that it will grow out of that. And in this way we should also regard other human beings. We should have a loving relation to them, and of course it is allowed to be humorist, which I say is a different thing from most of the stand-up comedians we have nowadays. Someone with humor picks out the weaknesses and the traits where human beings are funny and go wrong, and the particularities, and it is wonderful when he displays them and makes you laugh about it, but you realize also something, here we are still wrong, here we need to work, and that should be the ultimate aim of humor. It should show you something, oh, here I still have to work. And humor will always be there as long as human beings are not perfect, so they will mistake, and they will always develop, so they can always improve, and there's always a place for humor. That's something loving, and there's nothing more beautiful than a laughter of a few, or a heartfelt laughter of someone. Well, this is completely different from what most stand-up comedians indulge in nowadays, and this is simply insulting, and I do not have to insult. And if you look in the newspapers, every politician is showed in a very disfigured way. They say it caricature, but it's not a caricature anymore. It is just a personal attack here. It's just a complete disfiguring of the other person, and it is so far spread, and it isn't a sickness pervading our society. So I think what we have to learn is to realize what is genuine, what is humor, what is a good heartfelt laugh, and then also, and we must be able to stand, and we must recognize that those laugh is built